This is going to be the deadlift. So again, the deadlift starts out with assessment, okay? So we assess the hip hinge. The hip hinge again is, can somebody break at the hips, maintain a straight spine, and then posteriorly tilt the pelvis at the end? Okay, so those are the big things that we're looking for. Can they essentially do that? If they can do that, we do the same thing that we did with the squat. We add load, we add complexity, okay? If they can't do that, then we need to regress the exercise, right? And there's a number of different ways that you can do it. And it might not just be regression, it might be you actually work with this movement pattern and coach it, and it's kind of a different topic. If we are talking about purely regressing, so maybe someone's not getting that hip hinge, one thing that you can do is, and a couple of these can even be exercises just by themselves. Okay, so we can actually have somebody be in this position and break at the hips, okay? So this is still mimicking that deadlift motion, that hip flexion into hip extension. And you can actually add a little bit of complexity to this just to make sure someone's feeling it in the right spot too. So you can hook a band up to any kind of anchor. It's gonna go right above your waist. And then from there, now the band's just giving you some resistance. So, other things to work on when you're actually doing that, one, just working on making sure that they can maintain a neutral spine. So you can teach them how to go into flexion and then extension. So we're breaking down these components of the lift. So can they control their spine? If they can control their spine, they can control their hips. We can start moving them back to standing up, okay? So again, the goal is, can you do this? Okay, and even within this movement, there's a lot of different variation, okay? But that hinge that I just showed you, we'll just call it a Romanian deadlift, that would be the building block for it all. So, once that's down, we can add load. So with the kettlebell, if you're coaching this, pretend like there's an imaginary line going all the way through the kettlebell like that. This should about cut your feet in half, okay? If I'm holding the weight out here, I'm not engaging my lats. Because it's so far away from my hips and my torso, I'm putting more stress on my low back when I do it. So when you're coaching this, just make sure that the weight is right here like this. So this is the Romanian deadlift. Okay? An easy variation on that is just turning it into a conventional deadlift, so the person's just going to be bending their legs a little bit more. Okay? So this is the conventional deadlift. So the last kind of variation that you can do right there is more of a sumo style. So you would just go wider and go down like that. So you can even do more of a sumo style RDL. So that was a sumo style where I bent my legs a lot, so that's one exercise variation. Another one is where I'm not bending my legs so much. So it's kind of like a sumo RDL. Ways to make these exercises more challenging: add load. So I did 35 pounds. We can add load. We can do that RDL like that. We can still do the deadlift like that. You can do the sumo deadlift, so that's where we put it right in between like this. Come up. You can do the sumo RDL. So again, there's a bunch of different variations. Once that person, again, we add complexity. So going from here to the bar, I actually think is an easier transition than going from like a goblet squat to a back squat. Okay, so you just bring your person right over here to a bar. The Romanian style deadlift with this weight, it's going to be exactly identical to what we just did over there. I will tell people they can lift it up like a conventional deadlift so they can bend their legs more, just because some people might have hamstring restrictions where they can't go all the way down, or basically where they can't pick it up like this with a straight back. So I'm fine with them lifting it up like this. And then from there, keeping the bar on your body the entire time. And now if we're just sticking with that theme of maybe going a little bit wider, so my feet are not going wider, I'm going more with the sumo Romanian deadlift. Okay, so there's a second variation. The next one is just doing the straight up conventional deadlift, okay? So the conventional deadlift, we're right here, taking the slack out of the bar, standing up straight. Okay? Now the sumo, feet go wider, your toes are pointed out more, okay? And you bend your legs more. So there's even a couple more variations that you can do. One other variation that people do is called snatch grip deadlift, so you have your hands pretty wide, okay? So you have to bend your legs even more, so you're out here like this. Okay, so those are just a basic primer on the more complex lifts. So again, get the hinge down. You can add load, okay? So you can add load, add a little bit of complexity. Once that's good, you can move over to here. And it's the same idea. If somebody has mastered these lifts, then they can start to add more load. Before we move on, this is not for everybody, okay? There's no rule that says everybody has to deadlift. So you might actually stop right there with the kettlebells, that's fine. We have a trap bar here too, so I'll move this out of the way. The trap bar is easier on your low back because the weight's out at the side, and you can make any variation that you want out of this exercise. So you can do a lot of the same things with this. So one, it's more back friendly because I can just go just like this, and then stand right up. It's gonna hit my quads a little bit more too. So watch my knee angle right here. I can make it, my knees go forward. I can make it where I sit back even more, okay? So based on the person that you're training, or based on your personal preferences, you can modify this exercise however you want. So those are just some of the more advanced forms of deadlifts. Again, if your person or you stops right there with the kettlebells, that's also totally fine.